My fiancée demanded a prenup in front of her lawyer. I walked. The next day, her elite lawyer called, voice shaking. "You did what with the estate?" I'm Marcus, 42 years old, living in Seattle. I spent 35 years working in estate law, specializing in high-stakes divorces for the ultra-wealthy. So when my fiancée Sarah walked me into that downtown conference room with her lawyer waiting, I knew exactly what was coming. She slid a prenup across the table with this practiced smile, calling it just responsible planning. I opened it. Every clause protected her money, her properties, her family trust fund. Then I hit the forfeiture section. If I ever challenged anything, I'd lose everything, even the house we'd picked together. I didn't argue, didn't yell. I just stood up, said, "Enjoy your meeting," and left. What Sarah didn't know, I'd started moving pieces 6 months earlier. See, I'd built my career watching people weaponize love for money. I knew the warning signs, and I'd seen every one of them in her. The calls started 20 minutes later. I ignored them all, turned off my phone, had my assistant block her messages. Sarah was used to controlling conversations, but silence was my weapon now. 2 days later, she got her first surprise. That Vineyard investment account we'd discussed, the one she thought we'd opened together, locked, frozen, reassigned to an independent custodian under a trust structure I'd created 6 weeks before she ever mentioned a prenup. She called her bank. They told her I'd backdated the whole thing with full legal authority. This wasn't a reaction, it was preparation. Sarah freaked out and had her lawyer, Marcus, file an emergency injunction to freeze everything. But at the courthouse, the clerk stopped them cold. My estate wasn't under that court's jurisdiction anymore. I'd converted everything under federal exemption laws, spread across Montana, British Columbia, and protected under codes most lawyers don't even know exist. Marcus stammered about appealing. The clerk just shook her head. This was done 6 months ago. It's bulletproof. Then the real envelope arrived at Sarah's apartment. Inside was my family trust, completely restated. Her name appeared nowhere, not as a beneficiary, not even in the marriage contingency clauses. Instead, my sister and an old colleague were named as executors. Sarah called her mentor from law school, Professor Daniels, for help. He sent back one question: "Why did you corner him with a prenup?" Then he explained, "I hadn't just worked in estate law. I'd literally helped write the federal framework that governs trust restructuring. She'd challenged an architect with a form letter prenup, but I wasn't done. I published a brief note in a legal trade journal. I was recently reminded why some partnerships require full transparency before trust is offered. Fortunately, trust remains revocable. No names mentioned. Didn't need them. Within hours, everyone in our financial circles knew. Sarah's invitations dried up. Her speaking engagements got canceled. I didn't attack her. I simply withdrew my belief in her, and that was enough. The final piece? I'd converted my entire estate into a charitable foundation months earlier. Everything, the vineyards, the art collection, the stock portfolios, now belong to a non-profit with one specific clause. Anyone who filed adversarial legal action against me would be permanently barred from any involvement. Her prenup, that counted as adversarial. The moment she handed me that folder, she'd triggered the trap. She couldn't sue me because I technically didn't own anything anymore. She couldn't even use my name in court filings. 3 weeks later, she showed up at my gate in the rain, mascara running, completely broken. I handed her an envelope through the bars. Inside was a note I'd written a year before we met. "If love ever becomes leverage, lock the vault." I hadn't reacted to her betrayal. I'd predicted it. And that's the difference between playing chess and building the board.